I'm not necessarily the smartest, quickest, or brightest when it comes to that. I'll just take a break and go refill my coffee later. Happy Thursday to everybody, though. We're here on Little Big Magic House to do Teaching Tarot Day. Teaching Tarot. My life philosophy is this. Tarot is a life skill. Tarot is reading the general vibes and patterns that are happening around you. It's understanding the flow of life well enough to understand how things are going to go for yourself, for the people in your life, the people around you, and the different energies that they're all dealing with. And so for me, the simple nature of learning, telling, and connecting with tarot all comes back to being able to help people better understand who they are, why they're doing the things that they do, and what direction they can take that energy and take that form to expand it better for them in the future. It's about helping people to grow, so to speak, in their understanding, in their nature, helping them to understand that they're a part of a bigger order, a bigger system, helping them to understand where individualism is important and where collectivism, has key elements that you have to contribute to. And so, don't get me wrong, I love telling tarot, but teaching tarot sometimes is way more fun for me because it's about empowering people and setting them off with better understandings, better skills, better talents than when I first met them. Teaching people to fish is always better than fishing for them. It's the long and the short of it. And so I'm going to go through a comparison, as it were, between some decks here. The Dreams of Gaia Tarot is one of my favorite to work with because artistically, I find that the art on this particular set is just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. There's been a lot of work and a lot of emphasis into sort of a personal expression of things. And I think that's super helpful in helping others to develop intuitive reading. Imagery, shapes, and what is seen on the physical card itself can all be triggering to an intuitive reader to help generate an impression or a feeling or a message for their client. And so we want to encourage intuitive readers where possible because it's a very natural, very, very regular form of reading. It's literally just trusting your instincts. When you're working with somebody and talking to somebody, your instincts are telling you a million different things about them and about everything else that's happening around you and them. And when we work with our instincts, when we work with our intuitive systems to understand what's at play there, we can get ourselves empowered with that understanding to apply our actions, our deeds, our duties in different ways. So the hope is, through teaching tarot and empowering people in their intuition, people eventually develop the skill set to actually look after and take care of their own path and course and not need to rely upon readers for anything more than input and advice now and again. There's no reason to be paying a tarot reader $500 for something that you yourself can do. And again, a lot of people think that culturally, religiously, or any number of reasons they cannot be tarot readers. I firmly believe a lot of that is just an interpretation meant to define and contain something rather than to actually allow understanding and growth. It's not a rule that's placed on it with good intention. So as we know, the tarot is broken down into 5 sections. You've got your major arcana and then 4 suits that make up your minor arcana. The minor arcana, earth, wind, fire, water, these are all the key pieces, key elements, and key forms that exist within our natural world and within our existence. Now, this particular symbol down on the bottom there, the upside down triangle, or the downward facing triangle with the line through it, that is a symbol in alchemical uses for earth. If there was no line, it would be water. If it was pointing upwards instead of downwards, it would be fire. If it was pointing upwards with a line through it, it would be air. And with this deck, the Dreams of Gaia, we're still seeing a breakdown of the different elements and the different forms that exist within any tarot deck. On a standard rider way, the 3 of Earth looks more like this. We call it 3 of Pentacles specifically. And oddly enough, you could use a regular playing deck, in which case the 3 of Earth looks like this. Now, the playing card on the left isn't really going to offer somebody much for insights, wisdoms, or understandings. That 3 of Diamonds is only going to give them a sense of number and shape. Pattern readers are usually working more with the numbers and the shapes of the card, usually. So it's not even so much about having an image to inspire some kind of thought. Anybody can look at an image and get a thought. But it's either A, absolute pattern reading, knowledge and memorization of what symbols mean what, or it's absolutely their intuition, not something that's triggered by a card or a thought or a comment per se from the client, especially if you start using, say, playing cards without even engaging the client in conversation beforehand. There's ways to kind of, shall we say, worm your way around such mischief. So, when we're working with tarot, we got to remember that each deck, each format has its own pattern behind it. For example, the Rider-Waite, I find the pattern is very much it's the nuanced idea of a man's journey through society, the fool's journey through the world. And so everything in it ties back to the fool's journey. And a lot of the tarot decks that I'm seeing coming out these days, especially ones like the Dreams of Gaia, I find that they're moving away from the storytelling convention and moving more into artistic interpretations. I'm truly, on some level, I do believe there's a disconnect between most readers and artists when they're trying to implement a deck. That's why when you find an oracle deck that has a good combination of reader and writer working together, it comes out great. Tarot that's a little bit trickier though, because there has to be some level of storytelling in effect for it to be a tarot deck. After all, it's structured. A tarot deck is structured with major arcana and minor arcana. And in the same way, every tarot deck will contain that. The storytelling ventures, they start to play in a little bit differently. With the 3 of Pentacles, there's still the opportunity to tell a story about people coming together to work together and accomplish together tasks. The progression past this, the 4 of Pentacles, usually centers around control. As people come together to operate in good flow and good order, people stand out from the crowd that attempt to work the system and work it to their own benefit rather than it being to the collective benefit. With this one here, I'll have to look up what the 4 of Earth says, but the 3 of Earth touches specifically on, yes, cooperation, but it's not so much collective cooperation between this individual and other people, it's cooperation between this individual and the natural world. The squirrel being of some assistance in making sure that things are properly being taken care of, planted, or maybe it's just, going to steal this poor man's food and make it work for him instead. It really does remain to be seen, and the only way to see that is by looking through the progression of the individual cards and the individual flow. Now, we take this symbolism and we apply it to just regular playing cards, and let's be frank, let's be honest, playing cards don't give you much of any imagery to work with. And so it does come back to, you're either going to have to trust your intuition or you're going to have to know each and every symbol and each and every connection of those symbols. I find a lot of people when they come to me wanting to learn tarot that is one of their things that they think they'll do. Write down what all the cards mean, memorize it over time. Eventually it's going to work really, really well for them. And it's a school mindset. It's a good mindset to start with, but it's a school mindset. Not everything can be necessarily taught in that direct focus. You can memorize and absolutely regurgitate information, but when it comes to reading, the storytelling invention has to come from somewhere else. And so, if a person is reading with playing cards, 9 times out of 10 I guarantee you they're an intuitive reader. Card pictures are a distraction for them. They'd rather just do it straight up, without a card image, without anything of that sort. And they just let whatever it is in the spirit and in the flow speak to them, speak through them, and come across to the client. It's really, really, really cool to watch. It's really, really, really cool to watch, but it's can sometimes be a little bit jarring on the receiving end. 3 threes, technically. So the 3 of Pentacles, 3 of Pentacles, the 3 of Diamonds, and in all technicalities, the 3 of Earth. All 3 of these cards are the same symbolism, the same representation, the same showing. It doesn't matter that they come from different decks and different formats. All 3 of them are tying together under the nature of concept and understanding. Now, if you want your tarot deck to be accurate, that consistency of message has to be found. It has to be there. If we were to start moving this, say, more towards a progression of things, the 3 progressing eventually into the 4, so we got to find the 4 of Pentacles, we got to find the 4 of Earth, and eventually I'll find the 4 of Clubs. With your playing card deck, by the way, cups are represented by hearts, diamonds are the representation of earth, swords are represented by spades, and wands are represented by clubs. If you know these basics, then realistically you can read with playing cards without too much issue, because then it's just combining element and numerology. And depending on what you like to read, how you like to read, and everything else, it helps to make, oh, good morning, Freedom. It helps to make you see bigger picture concepts played not just as something that only your cards can work with, but something that all languages and all things share. Tarot has to have a shared concept within it. I see some tarots that like to go really, really off into the wild. You can totally tell Sarah about this and get me yelled at later. But yeah, my partner wanted to do up what she called the Rave Tarot. I think we were going with the Rave Tarot at one point, or Techno Tarot. And while we were talking and discussing the fixed elements and the signs and getting down to the ace through tens, I realized that a lot of her approach is more like I would see in an oracle setup. Her major arcana is going to be beautiful. Where is the 4 of Pentacles? This is weird. Anyway, there's 1 4. I'm going to keep looking for this other. The major arcana can have that progression of an individual arriving on festival grounds, going all the way through to the end when they're leaving, and it makes for a really, really good, easy story. Getting down to the nuances of suits beneath that, in my mind, it's got to still be the same, ace through 10, no matter what in representation. For her, it's got to be more about the representation of the art, the imagery, and everything else that's tied to that more so. And I get that. I get that. People want their creations to be an individual expression. Remember, this is the defining difference between what you get with Oracle and what you get with Tarot, though. An Oracle deck, it is its own explanations, it is its own story, it is its own focus. In the Tarot, we're seeing the same progression between these 2 decks. Again, 3 of Pentacles over here, people working together to come together for accomplished task. Moving to 1 individual trying to exercise control, authority, dominance, being the supreme. We have man and beast working together, trying to make natural come together and come into focus and come into dynamic. When I look at this one, I will, because 4 and 4, both of Earth, I'm going to automatically associate these 2 cards as having the same meaning, the same focus, the same desire of energy. And that desire of energy being authority held in one person's hand. Authority and control going to one person's direction, one person's actions, one person's decision. The imagery itself may differ between the decks, but if the concept is hidden underneath clearly, then it becomes very easy to see that, yes, the pattern of tarot has been followed. The storyline process is there and exists. And because that storyline process and consistency of message is present, you know that it's a tarot deck. You know for a fact that it is a properly structured tarot deck specifically. And not crapping on oracle decks at all. Not crapping on oracle decks at all. But it's like calling something vegan when it is dripping in bacon droppings and things like that. There has to be an honesty when kind of going through the expression. So, as we are going through the energies of Earth and the energies of dynamic, we've now landed on the four of Pentacles, 4 of Earth, 4 of Diamonds. In Arrival at 4, we're starting to see structures come into place. Numerologically speaking, it's laying out the 4 corners of a posting. It's also breaking the 3, and 3, 6, and 9 are somewhat of special numbers in numerology. They're also Nikolai Tesla's numbers, so if you ever want to go down a rabbit hole, just check those associations as best as you can. It's breaking away from something that was good, and that's not always understood when we're moving into 4s. Sometimes like 4 of Wands relates towards home, satisfaction of our environment, satisfaction of our space, but we forget that space and isolation of our space away from others can make us feel divided, broken apart from the community that we otherwise want to be a part of and want to engage. And so it's very much gets into the management of the power. 1, 2, and 3, we're seeing understanding, expression, and journeying with the powers, being infused with it. 4, 5, and 6, now we're starting to see more mortal reflected exercises of the power, using it to achieve personal goals, personal dreams, using it to more refine the systems and refine the expression that's happening around us. When we start allowing this to occur, it first means that we're engaging with our universe and our spirit much more directly. We're no longer just a little drone running through life and trying to do whatever someone told us to do or programmed us to do. Instead, we're moving into being more of an expression of our own try and figure out the results on our own. The child has open eyes, so to speak. And now through their own experiences, they're going to come up to their own emotions, their own opinions. They're going to decide how they personally feel about a thing, rather than just taking verbatim what other people are telling them. In the nature of Earth, in finance, money, commerce, this is phenomenal, because it's allowing the individual to now really grow what is personally theirs. You got to learn to take this control at some point or another. And on the most basics of it, for an individual, it's proper business management, proper budget management. If you have concerns of health or addiction that make it really difficult for you to avoid expenditures on things that don't belong, then it's that self-control as well too. On the darker elements though, especially with the man standing on his money, I always got the tone that sometimes people will use their power of money to control your life and control your fate. I don't get that same messaging from the middle one. It seems more just personal empowerment, personal focus, and I do appreciate that about the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. It always does try to keep the energy on improving the individual at hand. But when it comes to controlling the flow of assets, there is always room for manipulation and corruption. You can't ever just assume that something is going to be done properly just because the person has a letter designation and an office sign. Sometimes, even in the professional realms, even in the skilled hands of experts, things can go very, very wrong. And so there has to be a willingness to also be to account. Hold yourself to the responsibilities of your choices, the consequences of your choices, and being willing to adapt, change, evolve, and grow in other directions as necessary. Sometimes we gotta acknowledge when we've made a mistake and make a move, make a change. Moving forward in the progression, 5 of Pentacles. That change usually leads the person away from being in the cold, in the dark, and on their own, and moves them instead into a place of safety, but safety at a cost. That's a church behind them. And I don't mean to crap on Christians, but I will always crap on churches, because I haven't found a church that can avoid becoming political in some format, and that's sort of their downfall. On its own, Bible's not that bad. Love God, love yourself, don't read it literally, and you'll do just fine. when we start mixing in the politics of things, the control of lands, estates, kingdoms, a lot of this was done through the powers of churches throughout much of our history, because for governance, it's easy to have something that's already there and established, and damn it, the church was just already everywhere, trying to get everywhere. So it made for a really good alliance of organizations. Problem is, if you're going to join a church, you might have to accommodate their expectations of you. Long hair? No, you're going to cut that right down. And you must kneel when you're praying, and don't forget to make the sign of the cross, and use the right hand. Is it the right hand or the left hand, though? I was never really 100% sure. I feel bad for people with dyslexia. Probably can never keep it straight. You can get safety, you can get shelter, you can get security from this place. Thanks, Freedom. You can get these elements of good from this place, but at the core of it, if you do, you have to chip in to their system. Started this a little bit on the Three of Pentacles, where we saw people coming together to share their works and share their accomplishments, do things together. Now we're still doing things together, but together under somebody else's rule. The man from the previous image, he has stood on the money long enough that he has now built a veritable castle out of that energy and out of that form. Now going over to another deck, Samira, card pulls will be later today. It's teaching right now, not telling. Teaching time for now, telling time later. With the Five of Earth that we're seeing here on the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, this one is still the same dynamic of, yes, you can get help, you can get assistance, but it's going to cost you. It's taken away from being an institution per se, and it's being kept firmly in the hands of creature, life form. I'm always mixed on this one. One, because dang it, shouldn't this be a different kind of it should be a diamond. It shouldn't be a swords. A swords is pendant. Spade is sword. Spade is thought. Spade is idea. And so I've always gotten stuck on the card here and trying to decide, are they trying to have a message within a message? Because each one of these is technically also representation of element, energy, and number. But the gal seems to be the one doing the suffering here. Sort of lost without color and without form, existing next to this creature that, has he taken the color or does he just guard it? What is the barrier line here? An artist interpretation of the same message, but because of artist interpretation, and I don't know if it's the artist or the writer, maybe it's both, maybe they're the same person, they're making it less institutionalized and making it more about individual choices, individual actions, individual direction. These sub-themes will often show up in tarot decks as well. Every deck talks differently. The Rider-Waite I'm using here, it's friendly. Generally upbeat, generally doesn't want to punch you in the face. I have another deck, it's black and white, and it just wants to call people horrible names. I have an oracle deck. It's not a tarot deck, but the Heart of Fairies oracle deck. It just wants to help people realize that you make stupid choices, and if you stop making stupid choices, you'd stop living a stupid life. It's weird little dynamics like that we start to realize that how the artist and writer are creating their decks helps to create a personality behind the deck. So if you are working with somebody that is much more in their individualist stage, where their needs and direction is going to be all about themselves, a deck like this is going to serve them better because the cards are more individualistic, the messages will be more individualistic, and a person going through personal growth is going to get more. The Rider-Waite is a mixed bag. A lot of the cards require symbols of multiple actors and performers, but some of the cards are also very strict individual cards as well. So it really does kind of sway back and forth as you go through. At the core of it, the tarot wants you to believe that it's the fool's individual journey through the world, but deeper deeper to it is the threading that says each of us are fools, and the fact that we're doing this storytelling together is what makes the collective. And so you gotta recognize that one person that you're reading might be quite literally the man holding the cards here, bringing the curse into the woman's life. And the very next client that you have might be this woman with a completely different man that's doing the thing to her, or vice versa. There's always going to be different players for the cards. And you have to be able to perceive where the person might be at personally. I think this is why a lot of readers ask a lot of questions, qualifying questions at the beginning. And some readers, you can tell it's just so they can regurgitate and work back with them. I knew one gal, Leo gal that I worked with at the Russian tea room, and she was phenomenal in her questioning, because it wasn't really about trying to figure out goals, dreams, or desires. Her questions were always about, are you happy? Are you comfortable? Do you want change? What is it that you want to change? And then she could work with that based on what she was seeing in the cards. Okay, you're telling me that you're generally uncomfortable in life, and I see here that you've picked in friendships that are not comfortable for you, and digs into the conversation about how people connect, interwork, interlink, and everything else. It's a matter of working slowly and carefully with each client to understand what it is that the message is trying to direct them towards. And if you know your Fool's Journey, if you know your major arcana, it's fairly easy to reference it back to that and what stage of the process that they're at. This is a lot of temperance energy. This is a lot of being stuck in a spot, not being able to move very fast. Could be a hanged man energy as well too. And if you want to use that sort of as a reference point to give you a perspective that helps you to better communicate and express ideas across, then by all means go for it. Because at the end of the day, it's just about speaking a language. And if you can figure out the language that your client best receives in and deliver it to them on that level and in that form, that's when things work and achieve success and achieve proper growth. That's once. That's not. I'm sitting here looking for the next cards, and I just realized that I'm pulling out the wands, not the pentacles. Oopsie daisy. Anyway, so with Five of Pentacles, arriving at a location that will provide some shift and some change, some improvement, some security, but that security comes at a cost and expectations that will be laid out upon you. Moving into Six of Pentacles, generosity. Generosity and capacity of giving. Each has a need. Every person has a need. And when we can adequately discern what the needs truly are and work with people for their needs rather than their wants, that's when good growth happens. Both of these individuals are likely in need. But one might be in need of money for bread, while the other is in need of money for company. And while both needs could be considered valid, the person needing the bread is probably in just a little bit more need than the person needing company. I mean, no offense to anyone that's fans of Ladies of the Night, but, a full belly is more important, specifically. How do you discern which is which? The individual holding the scales. Scales are always about measurement, balance, examination, getting a sense of what is the bigger picture and the bigger truth. It's their duty to figure out what exactly is up. It's their duty to understand the deeper mystery and provide the resource so that others can grow from it. In the same way with this one, we see him holding the harvesting tool and the harvest. This is the one that has the supply. And now we have to decide what will be done with that supply that we have gathered. When we enter into the Six of Diamonds, we're hitting another one of those Nikola Tesla magic numbers. Gotta love the sixes. And in that nature, in that flow, what is the next major step of manifestation? Well, you realize yourself, and then you realize your place in the big wheel of things, your place in the movement, your place in the existence. You exist, and you share this existence with others. In earth energy, The hope is always that as people realize that Earth provides bounty, we can share that bounty and share that increase, that it creates bigger groupings, bigger communities, bigger opportunities. One person starts a farm. That farm puts up a silo and starts collecting grain. Others move into near the area. One person maybe just wants to work on the farm and help out, but this other guy, he's a hunter. So he goes, he hunts and brings back meat. The farmer and the hunter can now trade within this community. And more will eventually be attracted with more skills, more sets, more abilities. That is the 6. The ability to bring things together and make them function. Individual pieces functioning together for a greater whole. It is the mechanics of our society, of our thoughts, of our emotions, of our feelings. It is the realization that as contributors, greater can come out of us. Generosity is a paramount concept that you'll hear from a lot of readers on the 6 of Pentacles. On the 6 of Earth here, I don't see no generosity. I see control of the flow. And so it strikes me very, very similarly to what I would normally expect from the 4 of Pentacles, the man standing on the money and keeping things underneath his feet. But even over and beyond that, it seems like it's now becoming this person providing to what they choose and what they decide is most appropriate for their giving. If you see this a lot, actually, I heard about it first in grade 10, grade 11, how if you really don't want your tax dollars going to, say, military spending, you can always write to the CRA and say, don't put my money in the military budget. And it's a nice idea. It probably means absolutely nothing in the long run, but it's a nice idea. What if you actually had the power to control where those investments and those flows were going? The power to actually direct your harvest to where you want to see it land. And that, I get that very strongly with this card. Being able to direct where your things are going specifically so that things arrive where you want them to arrive and not where someone is just willy-nilly chucking them. When allowed that opportunity of self-control and expression, it's great, it's empowering, it's wonderful. I think it forgets that we are looking for, shall we say, communal growth when we start reaching the middle points of the tarot deck. And so wanting to make sure that we take our time, take our focus, and let things sort of expand in their own small, specific way. Again, still keeping with the playing cards, mostly just because I like having to do the work of going and finding them. I was rambling earlier, but the clubs represent wands, will energy, will form. Spades represent sword energy, cutting through air ideas, concepts of communication. Cups, haven't found the Ace of Cups yet. Or sorry, hearts. Ace of Hearts, or any heart, is the Cups cards, waters, emotions, feelings, and connectivity. And of course, if it's a diamond, diamonds come from the earth. And so diamonds in a playing deck are your representation specifically of earth energy. Now, a person arrives at the 6s and realizes the general form, the general gist, the general grand scale of all things going on around them. They honestly, a little bit. This is Sarah's deck, Freedom? She passed it over my way at one point a few years back. And she said I could play with it, so I play with it occasionally. And as a teaching deck, as a guide deck, I think it honestly is one of the absolute best. The imagery on it is spot freaking on. Progression in form. Moving on. Have I got the right number here? Yes, 6 to 7. So the 6 to 7 in this particular deck, it moves it into... This card I always get mixed reviews on. I see a person that is slowly burning away from the inside out because they haven't actually found the proper flow for themselves to grow into their best form nature of themselves. There's a struggle at hand and a need for healing, a need for change, a need for shift. When I think about the deck in an individualistic sense and the fact that it once held very sharply the idea that control has to be in its own hands, in its own form, I could see that becoming so difficult to do over a long period of time that a person begins to feel bitter about it. Almost like the Duttons. after trying to look after that ranch for so many years, there comes a point where, are we dying for land or are we dying for family? When is it actually becoming about what's important to me versus just what's generally in front? And that's what I catch from so many people. The opportunity to burn away the things that no longer belong, no longer deserve, no longer need to exist or be associated with you. The opportunity of cleansing, fire, rejuvenation, liberation, even in a way. The Seven of Pentacles. I call this the laundry card. You have your laundry. It's in one corner of the house. You pick it up, you move it to the other corner of the house. I did laundry, but you didn't really do much. You just moved it across from one corner to the other. And so for me, Seven of Pentacles is about the assessment of the situation and realizing where you might be chasing your tail. Where you might be stuck on old news, old behaviors, old habits, or old practices. Hello, Nina. Thanks for popping in. I'm going to be doing card tells later. This is teaching time, and I'll be doing card tells in the afternoon. Oh, my coffee's almost out. Don't run out. I'll go restock that at some point here soon, too. So, I stick with assessment. Seven of Pentacles, I stick with assessment. I stick with evaluation. I stick with needing to slow down and take the long, careful, perceived view over what's right in front of us. Is what's in front of us actually amicable to what we need? Is it what we want? Is this somebody else's pile that we're messing with? Should we just leave it completely alone and run away? Is there something that I think I'm doing, but I'm doing wrongly, and so it's coming across incorrectly? How do I tackle this problem? And fits in well with the old wounds burning away, with the shifting and releasing of what doesn't need to be there anymore. I do think even the crown that the man has seems to be very much about the seasons and the progression of time, allowing things to go through their progression and go through their evolution. My biggest take, the snake around the heart. And its tail's all the way down towards the solar chakra, moving up to the heart chakra, almost like it's trying to communicate between the two. Actions to heal the heart, to improve the heart, to better the heart. All those opportunities to see things really coming through transfer. Normally those two would be directed in a straight line. If the snake is there as a healer in between, acting as a conduit of this, then it's essential to recognize the need of outside assistance. 7, 8, and 9. How is this impacting the big picture? How is this impacting the big form? How does this stretch out from beyond me as an individual and stretch into being qualities of the world at large? People like very much to think of themselves as independent individualists. But the simple reality is that throughout the experience of thousands of human years, we have created societies that exist before you were even born. And so all of us are a result of other people's actions. None of us are truly independent. There is no such thing in the 21st century as a self-made man, because all men have walked on somebody else's road. It is impossible to be entirely independent of the actions of those that came before us. When we start getting into elements of assessing that action, accessing it in better ways and healthier ways, 4, 5, and 6, we saw, how can I make this work the best for me possible? 7, 8, 9 become then very much about assessment, inner perspective, inner flow, inner direction. Am I really messing around with this pile the right way or the wrong way? How can I be more careful and accurate and specific with these actions to ensure greater success? Who can I share this intention of direction and course with to make sure that it remains clear, concise, professional? They need to be like the hawk on the glove. They don't get to land on my face, they get to land on my glove. No facials, only handies. And that creates the better flow of connection to society, greater grouping, greater flow, greater emanation. We have to go through sort of learning, thinking that we've got it the best, and then nosediving at some point in a crash of, we know nothing about this at all, let's go back to the drawing board. And so, to me, Seven of Pentacles, assessment before diving back into that drawing board. Eight of Pentacles, accurate, careful, slow, methodic practice. Being so precise with each one of your strikes that you know exactly what's going to come out in the long run, in the long flow, in the long direction. This is one of the this card I struggle with in this deck. I understand the concepts behind it. I get that an eight of Earth is going to be about accuracy and perfection. It's going to be about slow, careful intention. When I look at this card, I definitely see someone that has taken the time to really grow into a role, a position, or a form. There's a significant presence applied in that staff is ordained. It's bright. There's all the indications this person leads ceremony, or leads direction, or holds knowledge. And being able to allow ourselves a little bit of a moment of inner perspective or respect to that power and what's being held carefully in the hand. The pearl. Pearls, typically in symbolism, take a shit ton of time because it's literally sitting there in the oyster shell, clam shell, waiting with more and more dust and more spit and more dust and more spit. And so there's a long, patient process that needs to be kind of at play here. This person to me is earning that process. This person has inherited it. They're already holding it in their hand. The finished product is there in their hand. So it's vigilance, careful observation, yes. Being able to kind of look through the whole picture and the whole form. And it just screams graduation. When reading for people, I like to make sure that we're understanding that this is the shape of the energy and what you could be moving with it. I see sometimes cards like this used as an indicator of you've already arrived, you've already accomplished, you've already achieved. I caution against that with anything related to an 8. 8s never stop. You have to break out of the cycle of an 8 if you want to see advancement and growth. I think very often we had a new bishop show up in Whitehorse, 2004, 2005, something ridiculous like that. And I say ridiculous because Thomas Lobsinger's plane went down in 1999, 2000. I think it was the first month or week of 2000 or just before, because he showed up in the Millennial Stories. And for us, Thomas had earned the right to be the spiritual leader of the Yukon for the Christians through connection with the communities, flying his plane literally to places that you can't drive to in order to administer Eucharist, just being the man of the people. When we finally got the new bishop, young me just saw an arrogant prick. Older me now realizes that he was sent there to see if he could temper his political attitude and come back to being a man of the people. And so it's kind of interesting seeing the internal politics of the Christian Catholic Church play out in front of me. You get some people that come in and they're all attitude, all I've achieved it, all I've accomplished it. He is the example of a guy that was on an infinite 8. I'm here, I'm the best, I'm awesome, I can do this, I can achieve this. But for whatever reason, he's not graduating past that point. It was Thomas Lobsinger that showed me the graduation of a bishop past that point of, I'm the bishop, you got to listen to me. About being communally driven. Understanding that every person has a place and a space that they should be allowed to occupy. That everyone has something to provide or offer. Somebody has something to be included for rather than rejected over. And it may take some time working with them to understand where that piece of inclusion comes from, but if we can be patient with them and allow them a space where they don't harm the greater collective, but can still do that personal development, personal inquiry, and personal discovery, then things can work really, really, really well. Looking for the 9 for the other deck so I can get it out there as well. But it's often seen as the business schmoozing, business connections. I lean on that probably a lot more aggressively with the Nine of Pentacles than I should. But it's understanding that every ace has its place. It's nice to talk to people. It's nice to connect with people. It's nice to engage people. But we should be engaging them for their skill set, specifically. Thanks, Freedom. Yeah, what Freedom said, Mina. Teaching right now, telling later. Probably in the afternoon. I've got a gal I'm supposed to read at 12 Mountain Time, and so it'll be sometime after 1 o'clock Mountain, most likely. But telling will definitely be later. The Nine of Earth from the Dreams of Gaia deck. We still get that same sense of communal offering, communal bringing, communal gifting. I feel like it's a little bit less about being the one holding control and authority. This girl's, look at this glove, look at this bird, look at this hunting bird. This bird is going to go rip some poor little rodent pieces. Authority, because it has the power to command another creature to act for the life or death of another creature. There's authority there. Authority isn't present in necessarily anything besides the brow. The authority here is authority given through understanding, comprehension, and greater awareness. It's authority presented by the power of intuition, understanding, and knowledge. It's the authority specifically over the self, but to also discern and see what something is truthfully and decide, is this something that I'm going to allow to stick around, or am I going to just reject it, dismiss it, and chase it off? The nature and the ability of each of us to decide what holds into our space and what doesn't is important. Boundaries. It's kind of a key word right now. And it always has been to a point. We've just taken a long time to kind of push the boundary line back a little bit. In the early 1900s, the boundaries were he who can beat you the hardest makes the choices. When we got into the 50s and 60s and had some really unfortunate incidences occurring, it eventually created the new idea that maybe there should be more boundaries between cultures. Can't just rob into this culture and steal their kids. Women might, maybe deserve voting rights, bank accounts, and things like that. Lots of shifts that kind of hit up around then. When we get more into the 80s and 90s, we start talking about the culture of capitalism and consumerism. When we roll into the 2000s, 2010s, we start talking about the culture of the elite. And now here we are in the 2020 trying to decide if we want to talk about the culture of war again. We're always going through a procession of changes and shifts of where power is at, what is being shifted, what is being moved. With these, her especially, she understands the whole picture of what's coming, who's getting hurt, who's not, and what they should be doing about it. This one has a neutral vibe. This is your person that could be saying, hey, I need some extra work labor. Let's set something up. It could also be the person saying, I don't know why that shipment of explosives didn't work. It must be something else going on. It's the people that are going to be getting involved for strong personal agenda and direction. I love the softness of this one, because I do believe that as Earth increases, softness is an appropriate nature of it. People usually see the Earth signs as unyielding, unbreaking, and movable. But if you've ever really been with Taurus energy, you understand they are very mobile. It just depends on what's going to bring out their excitement, what's going to bring out their passion for that moment. To me, passion reserved, passion in full expression. Piss them off, they'll send that hawk right at your eyes. It'll be no questions, just the way it is. Earth can be both firm and yielding, powerful and not powerful. It can be crushing you and drowning you in a whole bunch of rock and moving everything, and just drowning your entire town for no other reason than it is Earth, and it will do what it chooses. At the core of it, it will do what it chooses. Has to be in the nine of Earth. Because it is in that personal choice, that personal direction, that personal impact, that personal, this is my kingdom, this is my space. Feminine energy is all about that dominance and control over the space around you. The masculine got it in its head that it's supposed to attack and penetrate that form as a challenge, and that doesn't work. The feminine decides what is allowed into it and what is not. Watch shows quite often about toxic men, and they think that they can use the power of force to push a woman into submission. But you always find occasionally, because it makes really good storytelling, that firecracker that refuses to submit, fights back, works back. That level of, this is me and I will not be overtaken, that is a feminine strength. Masculine seeks to rob the feminine of it because we are inferior without it. We truly are. Again, I say it all the time. Every woman knows if she's pushed a baby out into the world. A man does not know for a fact if he has a child in the world. He doesn't push it out into the world. He doesn't feel it change his body. And so it is impossible. It is strictly impossible for the masculine to have that amount of power over the feminine. And the feminine, the earth energy, has to become firm and powerful enough to reject what it does not want, but yielding enough to accept and embrace what it does. Hi, Linda. Thanks so much for the gifts. I appreciate. I'm doing 3-1 teaching, but I'm doing tarot telling later on. And so if you're around this afternoon in like 3 hours, pop back. I'll get you a card for sure. Moving on to 10 of Pentacles. So now we hit that 9 peak. We understand our space. What is ours. My family is mine. Whether it's by choice or whether it's by blood, I've taken it and made it mine. We understand the yielding and the unyielding balances. So stepping into the portal point. And what I mean by portal point is this. In the Fool's journey, it starts at Fool, it ends at World. The World is the new journey, the new discovery that the Fool is stepping into to finish what they've already done. The 10, in every numerological sense, is always sized down to a 1 again. Numerology is really kind of a neat study. I only dabbled with it for a little while, but each letter has a number reference. Every date already has number references, and you use those numbers mathematically to shape and create different understandings. So ace through 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all have definitions under numerology. So if you know numerology and you can remember what suit is what element, reading with a playing deck's easy. Just use numerology. When you hit 9, you're considered at the final completion point of that series. Your next step is to acknowledge your full understanding and start something new. And so 10 has to be that next acknowledgement forward. A lot of cards have different glows and different energies and different radiances, but just as a quick recap here. This guy does not have an aura. This guy has a smidgen of an aura and self-control. It's not huge yet, though. This guy does not have an aura. This guy has probably the leftover hazing of an aura. This guy's aura is on fire. This girl has an aura, but it's a shimmer. Slightly less shimmer, it's dropped down to a sparkle. And then it finishes off at sparkles and shimmers. Even within the 10 and the people represented in the in the earth cards, when you hit the 10, you see all their auras and all their energy presences represented. Everything is there. They need to work with people on people's level, they can do it. They need to be the boss, call the shots, push the energy, they can do it. They need to be very discerning. You know what, Frank, I hear you. It'd be great if you could go get that diesel turbo engine, but maybe you should fill your kitchen first, prioritize, right? They've got all these gifts, they've got all these talents, they've got all these focuses. They've balanced the earth energy, and so they've acclimatized to the 10 concept. I know it, I get it. I will carry forward with it and learn something new. The constant student mindset is a difficult one to maintain for a lot of us, but it's literally the key to keeping youthfulness alive within you. If you become thinking that you already know everything and connect to everything and understand everything, and that there's nothing else to explore, You will immediately become old and senile and fall apart. It's almost like you start losing your memory because you thought you knew it all already. It's really weird. Really weird, the effects that the human thought and process has on the human body and mind. To me, she is the accumulation of all that understanding. Mask is off. She's ready to play. She is the supreme power, and she's going to smack you down. Tatiana is out on the patrol, and she's not going to accept anything else but. Freedom. You, like all Aries, have a very strong focus on what you believe to be the right and appropriate way. And I appreciate that about Aries, because that's what gives you the furnace fire to push people to growth and development. It honestly stems from that, because you know what it's supposed to be, you're going to push to what it's going to be, and you're going to burn your way through it. Some will respond well to it, some will respond poorly to it. Some will try and they will fall short, they will fall flat. And it's just in managing that response that we all have to be open. And I think, yeah, when you come across some really, really, really weird shit, you have a really hard time kind of putting yourself to it. I wouldn't force you though. When I talk about the supreme points, like I Ching talks about the superior person all the time. And I love the concept of it. I also love knowing that it will never exist. Nobody will ever be Jesus. Nobody will ever have the perfect walk. Nobody will ever have that supreme focus. Because we're all mortal. We're only here for 80 to 100 years if we're lucky. And then we get robbed away. And so if we can keep learning for that entire time, we'll learn a lot. We'll do really, really well with it. But we'll never learn everything. So when people kind of get to that point of like, nope, that's too much, I'm done, I don't want to deal with it anymore. If it's on superficial things, like trying to go from a computer to a phone through the same understanding of apps and programs, or like switching from a manual transmission to an automatic, these aren't fights that are worth dying over, right? If it comes to things that are of integral moral complexity, I know you will fight to the death about it. And that's one of the things I appreciate about you. When it comes down to the things that you intrinsically value as a person, you're going to defend them. And that's fire energy. I might have to do fire energy next Thursday, just to kind of go through the progression of that one. Because it's, I'm pretty sure that's the Radiant Light card. I'll see if I can find her really quick here. But fire energy at its supreme is just... As a side example, the court card that they give for fire energy, the hero, the one that is actually able to move through and affect things and move things in a way that it creates change and creates formation, right? There's an importance in fire. A fire-based individual trying to learn earth-based practices and moderation, it means slowing down your burn, and that doesn't always necessarily play out well for people in the long run either. The 10 of stone, it has to be very much the full acceptance that you're part of the cycle, part of the system. You are a cog in the machine, but because you allow yourself to understand the cog and understand its formations and understand its flows, you're not a victim of the machine. You're a contributor and a participant thereof it. The supreme fire energy for freedom, it's literally manifestation of your flow glow. You are the radiant light, the 10,000 eyes upon which nothing can look upon. You are the hammer and the chisel carving the very society and life out from everything around you. Full fire potential, I love the representation with this deck because it just goes to the fullest possibility of it, right? You can go and shape and change and redirect anything in the world. With the Pentacles specifically, yeah, no, I adore this deck. Like, the artwork is phenomenal. It took me a little while to get past the artistic venture of it, but it is phenomenal. 10 of Pentacles, always been about society, community, connectivity, understanding how you can best work with the people around you, engage in their energies, and expand into larger form through your activities of a communal nature. It's about getting out to the farmers markets, whether that be as a participant having your own vending, having your own stall, and doing your own sales, or whether it be as a patron. Because, hey, all these people are showing up with their goods. They need somebody to sell it to, and so you got to sometimes be there to be the one that they're selling to. Being a cog in the society wheel. We're super spoiled in the 21st century in the fact that anything is accessible from anywhere at this point in time. I have a supporter that's probably going to be sending me a new tripod and a mic, and it's coming to me paid from the USA, shipped from China to Canada. It's a really pretty triangle that we're creating here, but it's why to me self-sustainability is kind of a key attribute. It sucks that I can't just go next door to a guy that's making them here right in my city, right? The availability of what our society has now changed and shifted quite a bit over the last 100 years. 1920, you left the ranch or the estate to go into the city to pick up your things and take it back. And the things that you picked up were probably very, very, very heavy with the salting and the preservatives or whatever else, because not all places I don't think had electricity really running properly yet. I think fridges were just becoming a gleam in somebody's eye. And so what we had then for communal and shared opportunity was way different. A poor man could walk up to a mine entrance and be like, I need to work. And they'd be like, here's an axe. You do that nowadays, and, well, where's your hard hat? Do you have OSHA? Do you have this? Do you have that? I can't let you work. Your government says no. And so there's none of that accessibility. There's none of that potential. It gets tougher as life gets more complex and more information and opportunity is added to it. At some point, that complexity creates great civilizations. Great civilizations and also eventually great rooms. Every nation is a nation built upon the ashes of another nation. Every kingdom is picking up where another kingdom left off at some point. And sometimes the shifts are very minute, very small. The monarchy in Britain, they are more symbolic now at this point. There are still people alive that remember when they had absolute authority. There's been a shift and a change over the 1900s, and we just do our best to try and understand that and respect that. As we go forward, we'll continue to shift, continue to change. We'll continue hitting that pinnacle point, decide that we want to add something new to it. Telephone lines would have been one of the best first examples. And then eventually cable lines for the TV. And then eventually hard lines for the internet. And it just kept building and adding and adding. Internet infrastructure is now considered a necessity of life. We structured our society so hard around electronics and internet that internet is now considered a necessity of life. When I say food, water, shelter, I should be saying internet as well, because it's considered necessary. And that, I watched the internet blossom in my lifetime. It's kind of heartbreaking to see that that's how quickly it happens now. 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. At some point, it starts to change so rapidly that we can't actually keep up. And that's when you usually get your major reforms and your major changes. That's when you get your big shifts in identity and direction. And we're right on the gate of it right now. So good luck, have fun. Keep your heads high, because it's going to be completely new society. That 10 is going to size back down into a 1. That 1 is then going to lead once again into fluctuation and change. It just becomes one big mess, and somebody decides that they're going to try and untangle it. They're going to take this mess and they're going to turn it into something that's workable again, that's useful again. And they dance with their fluctuations, they dance with their chaos, eventually realizing that only by working with others can they make the work happen. Can they make things come together? So the parties come together and share their scared skills, but somebody, of course, has to keep a semblance of control and order over top of the whole system. Somebody has to make sure that things always stay on task, on order, on flow. And this person is the one that decides the rules and the requirements that are going to be coming across everybody. They are the giver of direction. They are the decider of the oath. You follow their creed, they'll take good care of you, they'll look after you. They want to make sure you do well, because you doing well helps them do well. And so there'll always be that support, that generosity and that care, that encouragement, that compassion, that loving gift of time, money, food, whatever it's going to be, to make sure that you get through this. You can get through this. You trust me to look at this pile and look at the situation, see what's really happening in the bigger picture. I guarantee you we'll find an answer for you. It might mean that we have to get really, really down to the depths of it. We might have to be very particular. Every one of your actions and decisions we might have to debate. You drink, you shouldn't drink. You smoke, you shouldn't smoke. You go out with loose women and wild parties, you shouldn't do that either. All these things you should give up, because something else is going to give you good direction, good order, good course. And if you listen to it, maybe better things will come overall for you. Maybe you'll feel like you were actually a mover and a shaker, a bringer of success and opportunity, not just for yourself anymore, but for all the people of the world. You now have gifts to share in the grand scheme and become an influence, a connection, a major mover of society. It's always got to tell a story. Whether it be an ace through a 10, or whether it be the major arcana through the minor arcana, or whether it be the progression thereof of the court cards, there always has to be a story of progression that exists with any structure of the tarot. Now I'm trying to find the ace, but the schmucky dragon is hiding on me right now. I'm going to check one more little pile, and then we'll see if we can do that same procession with the other deck. Make sure that it does fall into the alignments. Literally, it's just a big green dragon. Thank you. Thank you. So, again, finding ourselves at the pinnacle point, achieving the knowledge and power of the dragon that exists within us, our own capacity to understand the earth, our own connection with the earth, our own nature of the earth, being very much the seeds of growth and understanding that are happening within us. We can work these things carefully, but if we just hold them and not actually plant them or do anything with them, there is no change, there is no transformation. Something behind and connected tells us that there is more to be done, more to change, more to operate with. And so we need to work with the natural world to create these changes. Those seeds go from floating in the air into being planted in the ground, having an opportunity with the life around us to find the wisdom, find the experience, and find the secret. The secret is within the natural world, because we are the natural world. And so as we start to master our abilities and take control of our understanding, we start to feel the very nature of energy flowing through us, increasing our ability, increasing our yield, increasing our control, increasing our capacity to greater form. But with greater capacity comes greater challenge. And sometimes we have to make sure that we're not allowing this ability to control things becomes a sense of power over people, or a sense of power over life. It isn't life that we want to control. It is just ourselves that we want to control. It is our own harvest, our own needs that we want to meet, our own stomach that we want to ensure is filled and managed and encouraged for the better nature of the life that exists around us. Sometimes, because our path did lead us astray, we have to burn away those negativities that no longer belong with us and heal the understanding that our actions do not always speak to be our truth. Our choice of change always exists, and any previous action can be challenged to change to a better action going forward. Who you were yesterday does not have to dictate who you will be tomorrow, and allowing yourself to release what no longer belongs so that you can be that better version of yourself allows you then that sense of growing control, growing development, growing patience. You're watchful and vigilant over your own self and your own nature. You are now within the ability to oversee your own self and your own nature, engaging in a full embracing of your gift with yourself and others, and seeing yourself finding fruition within the society that comes as a collective whole. It's a little dicier with the Dreams of Gaia, but it's there. It's there. Absolutely love the deck. Absolutely love the flow. So, there's the earth flow, the earth energy, the earth bits. 10:20. I think I'm going to go freshen up some lunch and freshen up some dinner. I appreciate everyone popping in and enjoying the show with me, though. And I'll get this posted and launched up on the YouTube channel fairly soon. So if anybody wants to do reviews and revisits of it, it'll all be there for you to kind of check on out. Thursday, Tarot Thursday, the telling portion will still happen this afternoon. I've got one client at 12 noon Mountain Time, but probably after that, 1 o'clock-ish, I'll pop on and we'll start turning some cards and doing some energy directly then. And of course, you can always book appointments yourself. You can reach out, shoot me a message. I book half an hour, whatever you need. We can figure something out, make it work for you. Wherever you are, wherever you go, thanks for joining, and be safe, be well. Goodbye for now.